Okay, we have two panels yet, and there is a slight change in the program. The Ministry of Economy will conclude the two sessions now, and not instead of speaking now. And the next session will be devoted to threats to the financial sector. The session will be chaired by Gadi Tirosh, who is the general partner of JVP. This is a venture capital fund, which is very much involved in cyber activity overall, generally, and especially in what we are trying to do in Beersheba. Gadi, please.
Hi, good afternoon. So just, first of all, thank you, Professor Ben Israel. And just to clarify, involved in cyber activity, we only invest in cyber activity. No other involvement, at least not that far. What we would like to do in the next session is to discuss a little bit what we see as some of the main challenges, and also for us as investors, as opportunities in the financial sectors, and the cyber threats, and at the same time some of the cyber solutions that we see coming to this space. So just to lay the background for that, what we wanted to share with you very briefly is some of the data and some of the statistics that we've gathered. This is based on data and research from some of the large accounting firms, EY, PwC, Deloitte, as well as other research material from Verizon and other corporates that we've collected this data from. So, you know, to start with, obviously we track the amount of budgets, and what's interesting to see is, in some cases, the correlation between the number of attacks that are represented here on the left side of the slide, and the budgets in billions of dollars in investing in the cyber security space. As you can see, 2013 was indeed an inflection point in the amount of attacks that we saw, and this correlates also to the budgets that went into the sector. But the other thing that is also very important and very interesting to track is the financial damages inflicted by this kind of attacks. And while you see the percentages of, you know, what constitute $1 million damage up to $10 million and above type damages, when you look at the actual numbers behind them, the interesting phenomena to see is in the category of attacks that cause damages greater than $10 million, we saw a 50% increase year over year. So not only you get more attacks, which I think all of us experience, but also those targeted attacks, those APTs that everybody spoke about, create damages, financial damages, that are much more serious and much more broad than what we ever saw in the history of this space. Now, when you look at some of the underlying trends or underlying causes behind those attacks, you see some interesting phenomena. I'm not sure if everybody realize that when you speak with CISOs that are obviously at the forefront of many of these incidents, dealing with this day in and day out, when they classify where those sources of incidents are coming from, it's, at least to me, it's very interesting to see what large percentage of them are actually attributed to insider attacks, okay? And the area of insider attacks, I think, is an area that deserve more discussion, more attention. You see the breakdown here of how those attacks come to life, whether it's from current employees, former employees, and other partners. If you see where those attacks sits compared to the concern about foreign nation states, you see how important, once again, from the financial sector, from the business sector perspective, how important that part of the threat is compared to some of the other areas that I think were discussed in length during this conference. And then if you look even deeper and see what are some of the motivations behind insiders attacks, they are, as obvious and as one could think of, but also relates to, to the old business as well as new business. It's employees. Very often in the 30 days since they were resigned or were fired, this is a period of time where they're most prone to either cause damage or being solicited by other partner outside to create damage to the organization. So, I think you've probably seen solutions out there demonstrating how you track employees, how you track malicious attacks coming from the inside, how you track malware that come from the outside, dwell in the network, and then escalate privileges and attack the system from within. And we definitely see that this is one of the main areas that are on the minds of CISOs. But this is not just within the organization. As you know, and those of you obviously that were exposed to things like the Snowden incident and so on that really put a lot of spotlight on this subject, a lot of those attacks come from third parties. We've seen that in the case of Snowden, where it was just the data infiltration or exfiltration, but also in the case of Target, the analysis shows that at least the initial access was through third party. So I think in this room, we're very much aware that this is an area of weakness for the organization, but still when you look at the data and how little effort is put in creating tools or actually creating audits that track the activity of third party and its interaction with the organization as well as third party partners, it's clear why this is one of the areas of weakness that attackers exploit in order to get into organizations. Another aspect of that, and again something that is interesting to follow, as more and more SAS applications become available to the corporate and to the, I would say, to the enterprise consumer within the corporate, it's very difficult to stop the employees from using those SAS applications, whether they are authorized or not authorized, okay? The same way that I guess last year or year before we used to talk about the bring your own device phenomena and how dangerous it is and how difficult it is to secure the organization with those devices coming into the realm. I think we're seeing more and more the phenomena of bring your own application. Okay, what you see on this slide is the number of unapproved SAS applications used by employees in the organization, and actually in additional data that we have, it shows that the biggest user of unauthorized SAS applications in the organization, guess what? It's the IT department. So that's another area of vulnerability and something that need to be looked at. The cloud is definitely one of these phenomena that is, first of all, impossible to stop, but I think at this point nobody's trying to stop. You see the growth in the actual budgets that are used. We're going to discuss it on the panel as well. But, here I just wanted to highlight the difference, the big gap between how much energy and budget goes into cloud deployments in the enterprise versus how little attention is given right now to the actual security policy and security measures used when deploying on the cloud. As you can see, only 18% of the organizations surveyed in this research actually have a clear security policy when migrating their applications to the cloud. And last but not least, I think this is a trend that we also coming. I know that there is quite a few startups and measures that are being taken to protect against the use or unauthorized use or controlled use of mobile applications and mobile devices within the organization. We all knew it's coming. The data definitely supports it in terms of the number of attacks deployed through mobile devices. But as we can see on the right side of this slide, while there is increased awareness by CISOs to the need to deploy mobile policies, still you cannot fight the trend of bring your own device. And as you can see, from one year to the other, less and less organizations are trying to restrict the entrance of those devices into the organizations and allow the use of bring your own devices in the organization. So I wanted to, these are some of the trends that we wanted to touch on as introduction to our panel. When you compile them on all, I think it's quite interesting to see one of the headlines from the Wall Street Journal just 3 days ago. And if there are any CISOs in the audience, you are entitled to go back to your manager and ask for salary increase. You definitely deserve it. Before we continue to the next presentation, I would like to invite our panelists for today. Zvika Nagan, if you can join us on the stage. So Zvika Nagan is the former CEO and CIO Deputy CEO and CIO in Bank Hapoalim. Zvika joined Bank Hapoalim in 2011, and working for Bank Hapoalim, he was really the mastermind behind a lot of the IT as well as the security policies behind Bank Hapoalim, very extensive IT infrastructure. I would also like to invite Sunil James. Sunil, please. Sunil is the Vice President in Bessemer, one of the leading global venture capital funds. Hi, Sunil. Before joining Bessemer, Sunil was a product manager in Google, where he was responsible for a lot of their enterprise and IT initiative. And the last panelist, I would like to invite Michal Braverman-Blumstick from Microsoft. As many of you know, Michal was one of the founders of Sayota, and then managed the Sayota activities here in Israel under RSA, and joined Microsoft. And after I prepared set the floor for you and talked about the challenges of migrating to the cloud, you're going to tell us more about some of the solutions in that space. So,